Everybody to this month's Vanderbilt University Graduate Program Conversation Hour. So for this episode, for this session in June, we are very happy to welcome an alum, former student of the Risk Reliability and Resilience Masters of Engineering program, which is the program that we're going to be featuring tonight. So just want to give everybody a brief introduction. So my name is Gabriel Luis. So I am the Director of Graduate Recruiting and the Assistant Dean for Graduate Education here at the School of Engineering at Vanderbilt University. So with that being the case, you will be receiving a message, depending on which platform you're streaming from, you'll be receiving a message, oh, there it went out, to register for this event. So once you do that, if you've not already done so, I'll be able to receive your information and I'll be able to follow up with you after today's session. So please fill that out if you are interested in applying to our program or learning more about our programs here in engineering for graduate school. So, all right, without further ado, I will introduce my guest tonight. So Darby Barnett is joining us, and Darby, would you like to just give everybody a brief introduction, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Darby. I graduated from the program in this past December, so December 2021. I am currently working with IBM. I work in cybersecurity on the IT side. And prior to going to Vanderbilt to get my master's, I worked for a little bit, and I did my undergrad at Villanova and got my degree in mechanical engineering. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right, thank you. And for tonight's event, we do have another guest, Nathan Lee. So he is going to try to log in. They were having some technical issues with the internet, so we will try to get him to log in as soon as possible. But we will go ahead and start tonight's event featuring Darby. So thanks again. Also, to our viewers that are out there listening, please feel free to send us your questions throughout today's session. So you don't have to wait to the end. You can send us questions at any time that you want into the chat box, and we will answer those as many as we can throughout today's session. So, all right, first question, Darby. So I want to first of all just ask, so why did you decide to go back to school? Why did you decide to go to graduate school?
I've always loved learning. I think if I could go to school forever, I would. I know that some people may not agree with that, but I just got to a point with what I was doing in my career where I kind of felt like I had hit a bit of a ceiling in the area I was working in. And I also was doing a lot of policy work prior to going back, and I wanted to pivot and go a bit more technical. And I felt like going back to school was a good option for me. I worked some, I kind of figure out what I liked, what I didn't like. And that was the next step for me moving forward. So yeah, that's why I chose grad school.
All right, wonderful. And so I recall from our previous conversation, so before you applied to Vanderbilt University School of Engineering, you were coming in to the program with employment experience, so being in industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? So what was it? I mean, obviously, how did having that experience really help prepare you for this program?
I think it helped me figure out, like I said, what I liked and what I didn't like. I think if I went straight to grad school out of undergrad, I probably would have done something different, may have made a bad decision. And so it kind of helped me figure out, what I wanted for the future. And being in industry also opened my eyes to a lot of things that we don't get to experience in undergrad. So I worked in the tech field, and there's just a lot of things that unfortunately aren't covered. At least wasn't covered for me with mechanical engineering. So that opened my eyes a lot. And going into grad school, I wanted to be able to cover areas, like the hot button topics, machine learning, learn a little more data analytics, and get some management type experience, so I could set myself up for the future and kind of check off those goals I have going forward.
All right, wonderful. So can you tell us like a little bit more about your initial job that you had after you graduated from your undergraduate studies, and just kind of tell us what were you doing, kind of, and how did that experience in itself, really kind of help mold into kind of that progression of saying, okay, I want to go to graduate school. So you mentioned like you felt in terms of career professional opportunities, going to graduate school would help, um, you know, uh, help obtain some of the essential skills and experiences that you would need for, more of like a management position job. But can you tell us a little bit more in detail of what were you doing before,
Yeah,
in
sure.
that position?
So I was a consultant, which is a very vague term, but I worked out of Washington D.C. I was a consultant for the military, and I did a lot of policy work. You know, the government, there's a lot of policy, so we were developing a lot of policy with respect to control systems cybersecurity, so operational technology. For those who aren't familiar, that's like an infrastructure or a thing or an item that can do something and take an action versus your information technology that stores information and data. And I guess the concept there is a lot of those once manually operated machines were now being connected to the internet and making it more automated. And we were trying to put policy in place to make sure that correct regulations and protections are in place. So, I didn't really love policy side of things. It can be a little slow. I being an engineer, I'm not really great at writing, unfortunately, like a little bit, but not great to the degree of policy. But so for me, it was a little slower than I liked, and it wasn't as much like problem solving nitty gritty as what I was used to. So, I wanted to, pivot back more towards the engineering field in that aspect. But I also really loved that it introduced me to the concepts of like machine learning and AI and IoT. So that was kind of some of the interests I had going into looking for a grad program.
All right, wonderful. So my next question is really in a continuation of what you just mentioned. So you're in your job and then you're thinking, okay, I want to go to graduate school. I want to do, what was it? Did you know off the bat that you wanted to go into a program like this? Because the RR program is very much of a niche program um, in terms of the offerings that we have here at Vanderbilt. And so, like, can you talk a little bit about kind of the progression of how did you find the program? What was it about Vanderbilt that really interested you, and what made that really, the right fit for what you wanted?
Yeah, I had a couple different criteria I wanted to look at going into grad school. Some of it was about like location, and then some of it was about what I was going to get out of the program. And I didn't want to do like just a solely technical program where it was all about learning how to code. That wasn't really my goal. And I wanted to also get some management experience, but I wasn't really interested in getting my MBA. So I looked like high and low through programs. Um, I spoke to some people who worked in my company that did IoT projects and, went through the AI or had the background to kind of explain some of it. And the term reliability came up a lot with that. So I started looking for programs that had that word or just things where I could find machine learning in the curriculum, in the application. And I did like since I was used to our critical infrastructure systems, this program seemed to pretty much target that pretty well in the overall description of it and cover it well in the curriculum. So for me, this felt like a good fit, and it didn't hurt that it was at Vanderbilt and that it was Nashville. So that was, it checked a lot of boxes for me. So.
All right, wonderful. And so when it came to really, looking for the program, finding that right fit, so when it came to the application process, because I know there's probably people listening out right now that want to know kind of, what are some, maybe suggestions or some things that you think that worked for you in terms of making your application stand out?
I think for me, I think the work experience potentially helped. I can't totally speak for myself, I wasn't the one receiving my application, but from my personal point of view, I think my work experience helped because I was able to write um, like essays or personal um, letters about what my interests were and why they were the way they were. And then I think I mean, I like to say that I had some really good letters of recommendation. I had some good people in my corner, really there to help me like get through the process, and I'm really grateful. I was tried to find someone from every part of my professional career from college through working, and I think that helped paint a picture of who I was as a candidate.
All right, great. And so Darby, like when it comes to, we're talking about the RR program, risk, reliability, and resilience. So since it is you could say it's kind of like a non-traditional, it is a very interdisciplinary program. And I mean, we're not just working with engineering, but we're also working with public policy and law and economics and, many different areas. So like for somebody that, let's just say, they're kind of curious about, okay, well, risk, reliability, and resilience, like if you were to kind of to give them like an introduction of what exactly does that mean, to a prospective student or to somebody interested in the program, because it is so diverse in terms of what it represents and what it means. Like, I guess kind of in a nutshell, what are some of the highlights of what that means to you, the RRR program, in terms of the curriculum?
I mean, at a high level, you could say determining where things in any system, the potential for failure and the risk of that failure and trying to mitigate it. But I think the program overall helps you round out areas maybe where your interests are or maybe where you're lacking in skills. So I think coming from an engineering background, sometimes I felt like I was lacking in a management or business skill. So I was able to take a project management class, which is really really helpful, and I could see the whole scope of a project from start to finish, and that's a useful skill for me going forward. Same with there was an enterprise risk class that was looking at risk not just from a particular area like I was used to with security, but across the board at a company, whatever that might look like for a person going forward, whether it was financial or something to do with um, climate change or environmental type of risk. So I just think that, yeah, I think the program in general is a really great way to like round out your skill set overall.
Okay. And yeah, no, I think you put it very well. And then also, like, for example, your cohort. So, the students that were studying with you, because of how diverse, this program is, I guess, what were some of the backgrounds of your classmates in terms of majors and, just geography and industries? I mean, what were, yeah, because obviously, yeah, the program pitches to many different types of people. So can you give us kind of an example of what that actually looks like in the classroom?
Yeah, I had a lot of my classes were, engineering classes taught by professors in the School of Engineering. A lot of it was civil engineering, but students, I had classes with students some undergrad students, some students in their masters, and a lot of students um, uh, going after their PhD. So a lot of different types of experience, especially the PhD students were really great in terms of like expertise and help on topics maybe that I wasn't familiar with, which was really awesome overall. And in general, the classes were relatively small, so you're able to get to know people pretty well, and your professors know you really well, which I always think is really important. And a, for me, that's a reason to choose a university or a program is get that relationship you have with your professors. But um, yeah, I would say all around, for the most part, it was a lot of engineering students. But there are classes in, there's health sciences types classes, and like you said, law classes and computer science classes. So it really is like a mixed array of students that you cross paths with.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Darby, so when it came to um, the style of the program, how important was it to have access to other, whether it be institutes on campus, schools around campus, having access to whether it be faculty, just resources in general that were kind of outside the original just kind of sphere of whether it be civil engineering or engineering in general, just having access to those cross-campus resources.
Oh, I think that's extremely important, especially seeing as I started and finished the program in our COVID, so we did classes online. So just like having the ability to reach out to, my advisor or other students that I was in like an advisee group. So other students within that group, as well as easy access to my professors. I think that they all in general were really good about making sure that there was a connection and that they were available to answer any of our questions and were accommodating. And that in general, I think makes everything a lot better and it's a lot easier. And you don't feel like you're floating in this little bubble by yourself out there trying to figure it out. You have a lot of resources and it makes the experience like 10 times better.
Talking about, so you mentioned that you were in the program during the times of COVID. So like, what was that like? I mean, obviously you've had a very different experience than, what most other students before you have had, but, everybody kind of has their own unique experience. What was it like building relationships with your classmates? And like you said, with faculty that were, very open and had, left, obviously had their door open for any types of questions and interaction. So how did all that kind of work out and how did you feel, how were you still able to make yourself feel part of the community, in that situation?
It's definitely different. I think everyone can attest to the last 2 years being really different and adjusting the way we work and live and educate ourselves. But I felt like because of technology, it was a bit easier to connect with my professors, which was nice. I mean, I don't know that they would love that, but you don't have to like wait for, by their office looking for them kind of thing that I was used to in undergrad. So that was a bit easier because we could have, conversations easier with scheduling and stuff like that. Getting used to remote classes was a bit weird with Zoom and stuff like that, but I got used to it. And then I mentioned my advisee group, so that was kind of nice because that was weekly, and every week a different student presented on their research. So that kind of kept us all connected in some way, even if we only spoke to each other for a few minutes on Zoom. But it was nice. It was like a consistent way to connect with individuals that were interested in the same field and working in the same field, and to also gain some insight into what other people are focusing on and what their research is on. So.
All right, nice. And with that, like, tell me a little bit about, so what was like your day-to-day routine? What was like a day in the life of an RRR student? Like, kind of what does that look like from morning till night and on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I would say the schedules are I didn't think that I ever felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, which is nice with my schedule. I took 3 to 4 classes per semester, so I had flexibility to do my homework. I also got an on-campus job. I worked in the library, so there was ability for me to work that into my schedule pretty easily, and yeah, I would say that in general, my my schedule gave me the ability to attend classes, to work, and to also get my homework done and without being pressed for time, which was nice. I think in undergrad, I experienced a little bit more of that pressed for time. So I appreciated not having that in graduate school because I wanted to be able to focus on the schoolwork and not so much about like what is next, which allowed me to enjoy my classes a bit more.
And that was actually going to lead me to my next question, which was what are some of the main differences that you've seen coming, out of, being an undergraduate student and then going into a graduate program? And you kind of highlighted on some of those, but if you can go into a little bit more detail about, those differences.
I think the pressure, I mean, there's pressure to succeed, obviously, but the pressure of being an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid on a college campus, knowing that the end goal is to get a job or to go, if you're going to school next, what that is. I think that um, after working for a little bit and being smart with my decision with my master's program and knowing exactly what I wanted, some of that pressure was taken off of me a little bit, and it allowed me to just focus on the present and not worry so much about what's going to be next. Like um, what are my next steps, in the sense that, like, okay, what's the next job I'm going to get, or is this going to get me the job I want? I was able to just slow down and enjoy it. And I think some of that comes with just being more mature and realizing that the things we stress ourselves out about when we're younger end up being these really minuscule things in the long run. And we won't remember it realistically. So that was kind of nice, just to be able to, like, live in the moment of being in grad school and focusing on my schoolwork and focusing on my learning and what I take from it, and not worrying about what internship I'm going to get and what job I'm going to get, and what that's going to look like next to my peers. So those are, I don't know if everyone had that experience, but I think we do put that kind of pressure on ourselves, fresh out of high school and early in college.
All right. Yeah, no, I think that was good. And so with the RR program, so how long were you in the program? Just out of curiosity, because I know some people, depending on their schedules, it may be 1 year, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years.
Yeah. So I did it. I started in August 2020. So I did 3 semesters, but I did one class in that summer. So a year and a half ish. And I think that was a good amount of time. I was going to try and do it in a year, and I think I was pushing myself like a little too much to reach the finish line and think ahead. So I took a step back and gave myself a break, like took a deep breath and really thought through, okay, it's going to take you one more semester. What's that? What does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? If it's for your sanity, and like if it makes you feel more at ease just to take your time getting through school, then do it. And that's how I decided to do it. And I feel really grateful to have made that decision.
All right. No, I think that's good. And I guess, like, if for the prospective students that are listening tonight, like, what is something that you wish you knew before before you went to graduate school that you'd want to share with them? And you can take a
Um,
moment to think about it too, if you need to.
Starting school again is hard. You don't realize how hard it is to get back into learning, and you think that, like, you're learning every day, yes, but it's a little different when you open a textbook and you have to memorize, definitions or equations, and just get back into this rhythm of doing homework and preparing for tests, and the kind of stress that comes with that you're not used to, because you used to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and you could turn it off. And so that was definitely a little bit of an eye opener, and I think that made my first semester back a little bit rough, just readjusting. But so if anyone is coming from industry and you are readjusting to school, it might be a bit of a wake up call. Yeah. So that's my advice.
All right. Yeah, no, I think I mean, it's important to know it is, there is a little bit of a transition that goes on. And on that same note, like, so for example, like in your cohort, I guess I mean, did you have, for example, working professionals that were in the program? Was it mostly everybody was studying full time? And I guess, did you have, for example, students that were just right out of undergrad that went into the program directly, or did you have more people that were kind of already came in with some form of professional experience?
I think it
Those are
was
kind of two questions right there in that one. So,
I believe it was a bit of a mix across the board. A couple students had uh, come right out of college, obviously, or like had gone to Vanderbilt and were also doing their masters or come from somewhere else. And then there were a few of us that were also um, came out of industry. So I would say it's a mixed bag across the board. Yeah.
okay. And did you have like anybody in your cohort that was also like working full time and studying part time?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to answer that question. I don't believe anyone was working um, full time. I think I know there were some PhD students that weren't in the masters, but that were working full time or working part time. But the master students that I had classes with were not. And I didn't. I took time off of work. I worked an on campus job, but that's a little bit different than working my the job I was working for. But yeah, I would say most people took the time out of work took a break from work to do the program.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about the university itself. So before applying to Vanderbilt, like, so what did you know about the university? Kind of how did that all come together in terms of, yes, you found, this really neat program. But in terms of, Vanderbilt, like, yeah, what did you know about the university before applying?
I knew a little bit. I mean, okay, so I went to Villanova, and everyone used to think when you would say you went to Villanova, they said, "Oh, the one in Tennessee," and I was like, "No, no, that's Vanderbilt, a different fee." So I knew a little bit about it. I didn't look at Vanderbilt undergrad, but I knew it was based out of Tennessee. I knew that they were ranked pretty well overall across the board for a lot of their schools. So for me, it was kind of a bit of a reach applying. This going to Vanderbilt was really a dream of mine as a master's student. So I feel very grateful to have had that opportunity. But other than that, I wasn't super familiar with the school. When I was looking for master's programs, I was trying to stay within like a city or larger town type of area. I didn't want to um, go out to the middle of nowhere and start a program after having lived in Washington D.C. for 3 years. So it was nice that it was based in Nashville. I was excited. I'd been to Nashville before, so that I really liked Nashville. So that all kind of worked out for me.
So when you say you had been to Nashville before, going in or applying to the program. So like, when was that? Because I mean, obviously, we know that Nashville pretty much is now like changing on like a monthly basis because of all the new
Yeah.
skyscrapers and the construction. And so the Vanderbilt, I mean, the Nashville that maybe you went to, like if it was years ago for the first time, was obviously almost like it's a very different place now. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about that. But yeah, so when was that when you first came?
I went to Nashville right after I graduated in college from college. So that was June 2017. So it had been 3 years. And I mean, I'd only been there for a few days, so it didn't really get a lay of the land. But I remember, like, I just really liked the area. People are very nice there. The food is great. I mean, what's not to like? So it was exciting for me. I think I remember driving by Vanderbilt, and I love um, the architecture of the school, so seeing it and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't really remember much. In comparison to when I moved. I can tell you when I've moved in the last 2 years, a lot has changed. So much of it has grown, and there's just construction everywhere. But yeah, that's kind of my experience from before and now.
Nice. And so you're saying that before you applied to the university, you had not yet visited campus. So in other words, like you applied, you knew about the university, but it was like when you came as a graduate student, that was like your first time to step foot in the university.
Yeah, when I applied to grad programs, I told myself I would apply, and if I got in, I would go see the school. And I got into Vanderbilt, and 2 days later, the world shut down. So I was unable to really, take the time to go see it until I made a trip down at the end of July, early August, after I had decided to go, just to, walk around, drive around, see what the campus was like. And yeah, I kind of came in not knowing what I was gonna get. It was probably one of the bigger risks I've taken, but I mean, due to the pandemic and the environment, it was kind of either go to school and hope you like it, or wait until this is over, and who knows how long that'll take. So I decided to just go back to school.
That's a good point. That's actually a very good excuse for not coming to this
Yeah.
because, like, obviously, yeah, like the pandemic, most everything was shut down. Thankfully, things seem to be getting back to normal now. But yes, no, then it was a very different time. So, what was your initial impression when you first did step on campus and you were, a student and you're like, all right, like I'm here to study, what was that feeling like? And I guess what kind of impression did the university give you when you were like actually, here?
I was really excited. I mean, like I said, Vanderbilt is a beautiful campus. I mean, I know that that's like, maybe a little superficial to say, but when you step on Vanderbilt's campus, it really, it can be quite breathtaking. I think. And I mean, like when I first visited just before I moved, um, I was with my mom, and we both were just like grinning from ear to ear, like, wow. And she's like, wow, you get to go here. This is amazing. But aside from that, getting the chance to, I met my professors in that first week, and just being on campus again, and seeing like the facilities and being in and out and in my classes. And I mean, I was really excited. Everyone was so nice, um, and I just felt like, it was the right place for me to be. And I was looking forward to, the next year and a half of being at Vanderbilt.
And so after you came to Vanderbilt, like, so do you have like a favorite place that you like on campus that you enjoyed like going to, whether it was because you like the food there, or you just like the atmosphere, or maybe yeah, kind of like what was your favorite place on campus?
This is not going to be a fan favorite, but I like the library. Granted, I might have been a little biased because I spent more time there than probably anywhere else, because I also worked there. But the library is amazing. I mean, it's 8 stories. It's stunning. Um, my library at my campus did not look like Vanderbilt's library. So I love to read. So like, that kind of atmosphere for me was amazing. And I liked being in there. Did a lot of my schoolwork there. I would just grab Starbucks there and just haul it into the library and hunker down and work either at the library or do my schoolwork. So I spent a lot of time in the library. And it kind of became like my second home on campus.
Yes, well, the library is a wonderful place, and it is such a calm and quiet and peaceful place,
Mhm.
all in one. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So with the School of Engineering at Vanderbilt, so we do have the small faculty to student ratio where students can get to know their faculty intimately and have numerous opportunities to work together and collaborate. So can you talk a little bit about what was your experience with that? You talked a little bit about getting to know your professors, but I guess how did that kind of look like in actuality, like being in a smaller class size, really being able to create great organic community, just conversations out of being in a smaller group and a more tight knit group like that.
Yeah. So most of my classes, I actually, at least I did 3 semesters. So 2 out of 3 of the semesters I would have the same professor. So I was able to actually form a bit of a relationship with those professors, which was nice because it's nice being able to walk into a classroom and a professor, one, to know your name, and two, to check in on you, to say like, how's your day? How was your weekend? Or even if you tell them something like, oh, I'm going home for this, this, and this, they remember that. And those little things make a difference. I think, especially, during COVID, we realized the value of human connection, whether it just be like the little two-second conversations we have. So that was really nice. Um, and I had a lot of those professors too say, if I ever needed a recommendation for anything, just to let them know, and they'd be more than happy to help. And I think that is really wonderful. And I definitely value that a lot because I know how much I valued that going into the application process for grad school. So if I'd ever need that in the future, that'd be really wonderful. And I think too, just approachability, like being able to ask them questions and not feeling intimidated about asking those questions is really helpful because if you don't understand something or a piece of something, or you're a little confused, you want to be able to ask someone for help. And sometimes in schools where you don't have access to a professor, or you feel like someone is standoffish, it's really hard to break down that barrier and get to those answers, I think. And I don't think I realized that as much until I look back on some of the stuff with undergrad. I had some teachers, I had some, when the bigger classes, when you're freshman, where there's 90 of you trying to take physics or something. So it was nice being able to just approach them and say, pop in their office, or send them a quick email and schedule a Zoom and get right to the point and say, I don't get this, or I need help doing this, or I'm struggling with this. So I thought that was great. And that's for me, that's a pro of Vanderbilt's engineering school overall.
And also just that sense of community, collegiality, like we were talking about. People can just come up, talk, very willing to help. And, when it comes to, let's just say there's, a student asking right now, what kind of background should a student come in with to be a good, candidate for this program? And obviously, because of the multidisciplinariness of the program, we do tend to, recruit from a very diverse pool as well of students. But I guess, just from your experience, from just your own personal experience and the students, your classmates, in terms of, their makeup, kind of what are some suggestions you could give those students in terms of who would be the right kind of student for this program?
I think you have to like math in general. There are quite a few, statistics type math, probabilistic type classes that are a little heavy on that. So I would say if you like that, or it's at least tolerable for you, then that's definitely great. I also think if you're the kind of person that loves to solve a problem, or loves to look at a solution and figure out like how we got to that, this is the type of program for you, because it is a lot of problem solving overall. Yeah, those would be my two recommendations. But that's also just me speaking from personal experience about myself, and also someone who's kind of a go-getter. I think that the fact that this is interdisciplinary, it allows you to make this program what you want of it and want to make of it, and that kind of trickles down to what your capstone is going to look like overall. So I think if you want something specific out of this program and how it relates to your final project or what you get out of it, you kind of need to make it what you want it to be.
So can you tell us a little bit about kind of what that capstone project looks like in terms of like what kind of preparation goes into it? What are the things that, yeah, I mean, just kind of what that, like, what was it like, and what did you learn in the process?
Yeah. So it was an individual project, and I would have to say that that's probably my capstone in undergrad was not an individual project, so that was a bit different. Although I think that there are pros and cons to an individual project versus a team project overall. But it's about 2 semesters, give or take, worth of work. Because I think I started mine in April and we wrapped up around Thanksgiving or just shy of Thanksgiving. So you definitely want to make sure you work in the time for that. I know it has like a certain credit level and it may only fall in one semester, but you want to give yourself enough time to work through it. My advisor was Dr. Maha, so he was overseeing it, but he had some of his PhD students who were also involved, and I worked. Basically, they had a project that they were working, so I took a piece of the project and kind of made it my own and ran with it. But it really was pretty open to me, up to me to what I wanted it to be. He sat down with me and said, we have these types of projects and research ongoing. We can throw you in there, and you can, like I said, like make your own side project out of it. Where are your interests? Where do your interests lie? What are you looking for? What do you want to do with this? Which was nice. So it kind of left it up to me to figure out what I was looking for out of the capstone. And I like that. And I think I did a lot of MATLAB in that project, and I had some MATLAB skills and, used it in a couple classes and used it in undergrad, but I definitely put my MATLAB skills to the test. So it was nice taking that also, aside from what I was learning in my research and the outcome of my project, and I was able to also take that and strengthen that skill set, which I think it was really valuable.
I think that's wonderful and a very good description of how the capstone projects work. So a lot of students are going to be asking also, like, okay, going into this program, it's a professional degree program. So when it comes to networking opportunities, when it comes to, professional development opportunities for students that want to be able to network, whether it be with professors, whether it be with current students, kind of how did that look in the program, and how did you also kind of utilize those types of opportunities to network with your own cohort?
Well, like I said, I had a lot of classes with the same or similar professors, so I was able to, have those conversations with them. I think if you wanted, a lot of them all have their own research groups. So if you were interested in their research groups, you could easily, I'm not going to say you can, but you could easily go to them and say, hey, I'm interested in this, and this, and have those conversations with them about how you could maybe fit into their group or help out, or what that could look like for you in the future with what your career goals look like. I also think that Vanderbilt engineering in general has a lot of different professional groups that you can get involved in. Some that are solely targeted to masters and professional students that offer a lot of opportunities, to find either jobs or other research or just like-minded individuals. So that's really great. I mean, through Vanderbilt, I found a tech group for women based out of Nashville that I now, being a graduate, communicate with, and I'll meet up with them and go to some of their networking events. And without Vanderbilt, I think they were a speaker at one of Vanderbilt's events or something. Without that, I wouldn't have known. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I mean, Vanderbilt in general is really involved, I think, in the job and professional market in Nashville. So it provides there to be a lot of opportunity for students.
And we heard your dog. So
yeah, sorry.
I have a dog too, so I'm hoping my dog won't start barking all of a sudden in the background either. But if she does, yeah, it's okay. So, I think the professional development networking opportunity, I think that's also a very like nice key benefit, of being in a program like this. And obviously also the alumni associations. I think those are also other areas for students to look for when it comes to networking. Darby, in the last several minutes that we have left, so can you tell us, how was it that the RR program really, helped prepare you for your current job right now? So can you kind of walk us through, because you have seen kind of the whole process, how it works. You've gone from student, now professional, and now you're a Vanderbilt alum. So tell us a little bit about, how that process worked. Where did you start looking for work? How early did you start? And how, how did you feel that, yeah, just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I actually, the company I worked for before school, I went back to work for them. So I didn't have to necessarily go through the whole application interview process. But I am now working in an internal role, and I'm a program manager for our IT audits. We're doing internal risk assessments across our contracts. So I would say a really nice thing I got out of this program, I mentioned it before, was some of like the management and leadership type experience that I got from this. So that was really helpful because I knew I'd always want to pivot into a management role. I didn't want to be stuck being a SME. I wanted to, further my career and be more in management versus just be super, super, super technical. But so that was really helpful for me. And some of the risk aspect obviously is really big in security overall. But even from an enterprise perspective now, I'm seeing where some of that is coming in, which is really helpful because I can kind of pinpoint where, oh, I heard about that, or, oh, I learned about that, or even some of the project management stuff with, the start to finish of projects and seeing it now and understanding all the bits and pieces is really helpful.
So it's great to know that, the program really provided you that type of platform for your own professional development, which you so clearly articulate. So where do you see yourself in the next several years in terms of your own, professional goals, when it comes to, kind of where you are now and kind of where you want to be?
Oh gosh.
So it's like, this is like almost like an interview, right?
I know. I honestly, I think I would love, this is like way far down the road, but I would love to start my own company. I don't know what that looks like. But I think a lot of, honestly, what I've learned in this program would be really helpful. I've mentioned project management, the risk management, enterprise risk management. I think that can be really applicable anywhere. So that would be my like dream goal, but that's not 5 years from now. 5 years from now, I honestly don't know. I know that that's not a good answer. Thankfully, this is not an actual interview, but I'm just taking it right now, day by day. I've only been back in the workforce now for about 6 months, so I finally feel like I'm kind of back in it, back in it. It felt like a little bit of a transition coming back in it and pivoting things back, but I feel like I'm back in it, and now I'm starting to think, okay, like what do I want to do next, or what's next for me? What's my next goal? So I'm still figuring it out, but I also think that that's a good message. We don't always have to have it figured out. Like I said before, when we're 19 and 20 and 21, we think we have to have all the answers, and that the job that we get at 22 is like the end all be all. It has to be our dream job, and it can be your dream job, but sometimes it doesn't always work out, and sometimes it's the wrong career path, or you find that you like something different. So I think it's good to not have all the answers and just sometimes go with flow.
I think you make a very good point. Sometimes you just have to take things one step at a time. because there's a lot of surprises that could come out. But yes, no, I think that's a very good point. Darby, talk to me a little bit about Nashville. So, for somebody who has not, for example, people that are listening tonight, those who have not been to Nashville before, how would you describe the city?
Oh gosh.
And Tennessee in general, just the area. Yeah.
So being that I moved from Washington, D.C., very different. It's a little bit more slower paced, which is lovely because I think people actually stop to get to know you, which is nice. And I know that that sounds a bit odd, but in some other cities, I think it's a little too fast paced, and you don't really get to know someone. And people are just even pleasant, polite gestures like, or how was your day, or saying hello, just kind of like that stuff. That's all nice down in Nashville. I didn't realize like how much I kind of missed that until I moved down here and started realizing that. But the food is fantastic. I'm a big foodie. I love to try new restaurants, and I don't think I've been disappointed once, which is really saying something. So overall, really impressed. And there's always something like new to do. If you like to be outdoors, you can go hiking. There's lakes. I mean, if you like music, there's obviously plenty of music. Um, I moved and I got a dog, which you guys heard. So, and that's honestly, I totally for that alone, I love Nashville because I rescued my dog in Nashville, and Nashville is such a dog friendly city, which is wonderful. So anywhere you go, you're going to find a pet. So that's always a great attraction. But no, I think Nashville is really great. And some people don't like the growth. Some people do like the growth. I think, while I don't love the construction, there's opportunity. And as someone who works in tech, I think more of that is coming to Nashville, which is exciting for me. I think I find that exciting professionally. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But yes, I would say that if you are thinking of coming to Vanderbilt and you want to move to Nashville, don't hesitate. You're gonna love it.
Yes, no, very, very good point. And I think you make a very good comparison. I mean, I completely agree. Nashville is a great place where you can have the outdoors and a city all in one place.
Yeah.
Not very far away from each other. I mean, like you said, there's parks, there's lakes. You're only about 20, 30-minute drive from the countryside. So there's just there's waterfalls. There's so much going on. And you talked about the food, which I think that's obviously a topic that a lot of people enjoy talking about. So you've tried many different restaurants. So do you have like a favorite top one or two that you would say, okay, if you come to Nashville, like you have to try this food? Like,
Gosh, that's really hard.
we can make it top five if there's like more. Like it doesn't have to just be.
I don't know. Okay, so I love Adele's, and I know that that's a popular one, but it's one that's like a fun one for brunch, or like if your parents are in town, it's a good parent spot. And then a piece is I believe it's Lebanese. It's in 12 South, and honestly, one of the best meals I've had in a long time. So I would highly recommend that. A lot of the restaurants on 12 South are great. And then what's another one? Oh, I went to. I like Italian food. I'm really big into Italian, and that's something I had trouble finding up here, was like a good Italian, like classic Italian. So I forgot what the name is. It's right by Vanderbilt, there by the Erickson. But it's a really lovely Italian place. You can actually sit down and have a true Italian meal where you don't have to eat your food in an hour and run out the door. Like they really like to let you sit and enjoy the food and the ambiance and the music. So that was I think it's Giovanni's. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to that. But yeah, that was honestly also a great meal.
All right, I was like here, like taking notes. Like I need to like try some new restaurants in Nashville. Yeah, no, that's always that's a very important topic about being in Nashville. What's your favorite place in the city? If you were like, all right, I'm going to come to Nashville and I'm going to be here for a day. Like, what would you kind of do in that day?
Oh, man, that's really hard. What would I do in that day? Huh. I'm trying to think. I feel like this is gonna stress me out. No. I would probably go and go to a coffee shop because there's a ton of little cute coffee shops all around, um, and get my coffee, and then pick a neighborhood to walk around because I just like to stroll. That's my favorite thing to do. So maybe go to like 12 South, or even go down to Hillsborough Village, or maybe not so much the Gulch on a weekend if the tourists are there, but probably just stroll around, maybe do a little shopping. I love the boutiques in Nashville. Oh, actually, I take it back. If I could do anything, I would just go to Franklin. As someone who loves boutiques, if you want to spend a day shopping and just strolling, Franklin is where it's at. I know it's not actually right in Nashville, but it's 25-minute drive, and it's wow, you could spend a whole day there. That would be where I would spend a day. But if I didn't do that, I'd probably just walk around Hillsborough Village, grab a salad or grab a smoothie, and take my dog over to Centennial, and we go for a walk, and then find somewhere nice to watch a sunset. I do like a good sunset. So yeah, and I love driving down 40 West a little bit on the highway there. It's really beautiful. So in the fall, I know that was a lot of different things, but
I feel like you would need
I'm
more
just
than a day in Nashville then.
yes. I'm more for like the sights and how it makes you feel, and less about doing so many things. I have to check it off the list. But yes, I'm very much just a girl that could just stroll all day.
Yeah, so there's a lot of nice places in Nashville to walk around. So that's a very
Yeah.
good point that you made. We have 3 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to fit in two last questions. One being, if you had to think of like what was your favorite memory of being at Vanderbilt? And I know that's could mean many things, but I guess when you think of Vanderbilt in your experience, kind of what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Vanderbilt in my experience. Um, oh goodness, this is gonna stress me out. um, the first thing that comes to mind, gosh, the first thing that comes to mind is it's weird, but just like walking through the main part of campus. Because I lived off campus. I spent a lot of time like walking, around and spending time outside doing work and stuff like that. But I really do just like kind of miss just being on campus. It's really beautiful, especially in the fall. Um, like I said before, I like the library too. It's beautiful. Sit out in front of the library there, get a coffee, and just enjoy the nice weather. That's another thing too. It's just like the beautiful weather, being outside. So not so much the heat, but when it's nice out, yes.
All right, yes. And so to close, we have 2 minutes left. And Darby, I want to thank you. You've done a great job tonight, and it's been I've enjoyed the conversation very much, and I'm sure our viewers have as well. And by the way, for the viewers out there, if you have any questions, please send them over. We do have 2 minutes left. So what's something you would like to leave our listeners with, kind of as like a final thought? We've kind of talked about several different topics here, that with of course with it being central to the RRR program. But what's something you would like to just leave our listeners with in terms of final thoughts?
Don't doubt yourself. I doubted myself and my ability to get into Vanderbilt. So I think that you're your biggest advocate. So whatever you want to do, go and do it, whatever that looks like. And don't ever let anyone take that away from you. So I know that those are kind of cliche, but that's kind of how I view like in my experience. Yeah.
No, I think you make a good point. Like, always pursue your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and really work towards that, and you'll wind up accomplishing, what it is that you're looking for. So I think that's a very good message to leave off on. With that being the case, we are at 8 o'clock. So I do want to thank all the viewers for listening in. Darby, thank you so much, for your time, for being today's special guest. Emily Musing, my colleague, who is in the backstage, who has helped to put everything together for tonight's session. I want to thank you as well. Those of you, please feel free to fill out the registration that we talked about a little bit earlier, and I will follow up with you, and we'll talk more about the program. So, Darby, thank you again for your time. It was a pleasure talking with you, and stay safe and have a great evening, okay?